That's right. We were looking at that rotation down in LaRue County, and Hannah, these quick spin-ups, you get a few, like needle in a haystack spin-ups where it can lead to a possible tornado. At this point in time, we have a tornado warning down around Hodgenville, and this runs until 8:45 this morning.
Right, and we've seen storms do this a couple of times this morning, not quite to this degree, but they do spin up for a couple of scans. They rotate. That rotation kind of tightens in on itself. We watch it closely for a couple of scans, and in the past, until this time, we've then seen that rotation kind of pulse down a little bit. Jude, can you talk to us about why this is a little bit different than what we've seen so far this morning?
Yeah, there's two areas of rotation that we're looking at, and this is definitely not one of those textbook tornado warnings that you're going to see where you know a tornado's on the ground. It's a little bit scattered here, but up around New Haven over towards Athertonville, some green and red linked up together, and then heading south as you go just southeast of White City, a little bit of green and red. This is moved east of Hodgenville, so we're not looking at the chance for a tornado right now in the largest city in LaRue County. It is moving east, but you get these scans every couple minutes with StormView HD radar. This is the wind that we're looking at, and we watch these two locations carefully. And then this spot here is where we have the rain coming down. This is different. This is telling us exactly where the heavy rain is pouring down and potentially some hail. But around Lee's Garden Center, Pyramid Forest, now this is right along 31 East. These are locations where we do have a couple twinning spots of some weak rotation on the radar. And this isn't something where I want you to be too alarmed, like, oh my gosh, there's a tornado on the ground. This is definitely a bit different scenario where the radar says there could be an indication of a quick spin up. And if we would get that quick spin up, more than likely, this would be a weekend tornado with winds probably closer to the 75-mile-per-hour range is what we've been seeing. But regardless, the chance is there for some damaging wind. Even if it's not rotating, the chance is there in this severe thunderstorm warning and tornado warning that we're looking at a minimum, some straight-line wind damage here pressing over towards Lebanon and Springfield and Washington and Marion County of winds that could be gusting 55 to 65 miles per hour. So this is the storm that's taking center stage right now. Just south of Bardstown is basically where you get the most northern flank, the northern extent of that tornado warning. At this stage, I don't think Bardstown right now has to be too worried about anything tornadic. It's more towards the center of this boxed-in area. But even in Bardstown right now, with the rain, the lightning, and the chance for some winds 35 to 45 miles per hour, it's not something where I think you should be outside. We're looking at Loretto, Springfield, Willisburg, Mackville, Dixville. These are all locations in the path of some of this Doppler radar indicated tornadic wind field that we've been looking at. Again, 31E coming down towards Hodgenville, where it has already passed through. The tornado warning extends just east of Hodgenville. I have a suspicion that this will probably be lifted before 8:45 unless something new comes out of this. Because the way it's staying right now, very weak rotation, but definitely evident right there. In between New Haven over towards Raywick, right there. Let's see, I'm going to get a couple spots here as we look at that, as we move over towards Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, looking towards that as a place where you might want to be in a safe location of your house, away from windows and walls in the center part of your house, moving just east of Hodgenville by about 7 miles there. And these things happen quickly, so you're looking at basically it moves a mile a minute. So every minute that this thing passes along, you're going to see it jump quite a bit on your TV. That's how fast these thunderstorms are moving. And Hannah, you've done this for such a long time. You know all about tornadoes and what they look like on the radar. Is there anything different that you're seeing compared to what I've been looking at over here?
Well, I think you just called me old, but I'll let that one slide.
You're not as old as me.
I'm not seeing anything really different or overly alarming at this point. Listen, we have a tornado warning. You should be taking that seriously. We don't often jump on here at 8:30 in the morning and tell you, hey, there's a potential you're going to see some storms spin, and we're seeing that right now. So that in itself is a little odd. What we're seeing on the radar, though, doesn't present to me anything that I would find overly concerning. So we put the scope on here so that you can see kind of in the background the normal view that you're used to seeing on the radar. That's just rain, the reflectivity. Inside the circle, the reds and the greens, that's where we look for where is the storm spinning. So the red and the green colors right next to each other mean that the wind is moving a different direction. right next to itself. So Jude just drew that little spinner on there. That's what the wind is doing, just kind of rotating in on itself in that spot. Now, we mentioned there are several moments in this line, several different locations, one up closer to New Haven, and then this one a little bit farther south where the line is spinning. This is the best one, I think. Jude, correct me if you see something different there, but I think that this one to the south that we've circled here, where you see this rotation, is the best spot that we've got right now. Is there a tornado on the ground? We can't say that right now. Is the storm spinning? Yes, we can tell you that for sure. So from this moment of rotation, this kind of most southern part, and you can see how it extends up the line, this is where we're tracking the storm. And it's moving to the east at 60 miles an hour. So that's why Jude says it's moving a mile a minute, literally a mile a minute. And you can see the locations where this is headed next. We've got the Bear Wallow community. We haven't talked to you yet, about 20 or 25 minutes away from you. Valley Hill still about 30 minutes away. Anyone inside of this tornado warning, though, inside of that red box, the polygon, you should be taking this seriously. You have the threat to see a tornado within the next 30 minutes. This warning goes until 8:45, so the next 20 minutes. But anyone inside of this box, the communities that we're calling out, we expect you to be headed to your safe place now. That's the lowest level of your home. If you have a one-level home, you're already there. The most interior space. So think about putting as many walls between you and the outside as you can. So we're tracking again where that line is rotating. This is also where we're seeing some of the heaviest rain along the line, some of the strongest wind gusts as well. Those communities are listed on the right side of your screen. St. Mary, 5 minutes away from you. Springfield, closer to 15 minutes. Willisburg, you're kind of getting on the edge of this warning box. But as this storm continues to move east, it's headed your direction. Whether it has a warning by the time it gets to you or not, it's still going to be a stronger storm. We've also talked extensively about the lightning this morning. We're seeing a lot of that inside of this storm as well. It's very energetic. It's spinning. It's still spinning as we put that scope on it, especially right outside Laredo and New Haven. Looks like we maybe just got an update on that warning.
Let's see here. Tornado warning will continue, still finding some weak rotation in there. Hannah, this is over towards, let's see, Jack's Campground, Bardstown Boat Launch. This is moving towards Howardstown, Rolling Fork River locations in the path of this. So like we've been hitting up how fast this moves to the east and northeast. Now it's towards Loretto. Lebanon, while you're on the southern flank of that tornado warning, and again up towards Bardstown, this really takes a path right up towards the middle, like you're bowling. You're not going for the 7-10 split. I want you to pay attention to the middle of this, moving towards Springfield, what's left of this strong to severe storm with some rotation. I mean, it's going to be in Springfield in a few minutes. It's not like you have an hour or so for this storm to arrive. It'll be there. A lot of the lightning, the heavy rain, still concentrated over around Howardstown. Again, a lot of the rotation in between Howardstown and Loretto. And we've seen two little itty-bitty pieces embedded in here. Nothing jumps out at me. It shouldn't jump out at you, even if you're a novice meteorologist and you like to track the weather that says we have a tornado on the ground. We don't see that at all. But we have to run with this because it did exhibit a little stronger rotation about 10 minutes ago, right before the warning came out, as we rewind and watch how this thing has evolved and splitting a little bit, just barely some of that rotation holding together right now. And if you're thinking, well, golly, okay, that's weak. Why do we keep discussing it? There's still the chance for some damaging straight line winds just blasting out of this thing. And one thing I want to do right now, because it's 8:26 and there's so much ongoing, let's widen out the perspective and show you about the heavy rain that some of us have to drive through. While we don't have severe weather in Louisville anymore, we've already had multiple warnings with hail reported from Louisville, southern Indiana, up towards Oldham County, all the way up towards Madison. You know, we still have a nightmarish situation to have to travel in this. If you can wait another hour or so, this will be clearing. So when you look at the radar history, what we haven't had up to this point down in southern and central Kentucky and southeastern sections of our viewing area was rain. So we've jumped into the 60s. This is where all the fuel is. This is where the atmosphere is amped up and ready to go. There's a little more twisting, a little more wind energy farther south. So the severe weather potential is here. But after 9:30 and 10 o'clock this morning, these severe thunderstorm warnings, this one tornado warning, all that's over into central Kentucky, and we're not concerned about it anymore. Hannah, what are you finding right now?
Watching the Bardstown area a little bit more closely. So right now you're looking at kind of those two panels On this side of your screen, the normal view, the rain that you're used to seeing. The far side is the rotation. So let me bring this, you know what, let's take this into one panel actually, make this a little bit easier to see for you. I think as you look at the Bardstown community, you're seeing that rotation couplet tighten up just a little bit. It's really just south of Bardstown, right along the highway there. In the last scan or two, that has kind of curved in on itself. It's not perfect. I can't tell you there's a tornado on the ground there, but that's something to watch closely. And my concern is that's right on the edge of this warning box. In fact, the Bardstown, the city limits, well, there you go. There's a new tornado warning. Good. I'm so glad to see that. Now you're in a warning. I was about to say you're not in it, but you should be paying attention. So a new tornado warning just issued that does include Bardstown for that tornado couplet, that rotation couplet that we were just watching. So this new warning includes Anderson, Nelson, Spencer, and Washington counties. That's parts of the counties, not the entire things. This will go until 9 a.m. So the first tornado warning until 8:45. This new one that includes Bardstown goes until 9 a.m. Both storms still moving to the east and northeast between 55 and 60 miles an hour. So these storms are still moving quite fast. They are still quite powerful, and that's why we're with you this morning. We're also starting to get a couple of damage reports coming in. It is not safe at this point if you are still in the warning box. If you are still hearing us calling communities near you, it's not safe for you to be outside yet. Wait until this storm passes, then you can head outside and send us your damage reports. But with that in mind, we're starting to get a couple of reports out of LaRue County, where we're seeing some trees that have come down. The wind was a little bit stronger there, where we were not seeing the same rotation, the same tornadic potential. So just keep in mind these storms have a history of producing damage. That's something that we want to watch closely as we go through the next couple of minutes. Jude, I'm going to flip over to this.
That was in Tonyville.
That tree down?
Tonyville, yes.
On Old Elizabethtown Road.
Yeah,
And
that
looks
rotation tightening up a little bit over around Bardstown. Check this out. So this is going to take a lot of the clutter off your TV with all the red and green colors, and this is looking at shear. Simply put, where there's some rotation. And the new warning that just came out for Bardstown, right in downtown Bardstown, that shear marker is close to it. Loretto, again, where we had the first tornado warning, it's pretty much right on top of Loretto. This was the original. This new one up here in Nelson County is the one that just came onto the scene in the last couple of minutes, as we have quick areas of spin-ups over around Tonyville. When this thing formed, before the tornado warning was issued, initially that rotation was a little bit stronger down here across parts of LaRue County, but two separate areas, easy to see when you're sitting at home watching how this rotation has come along. Definitely more widespread initially down around Hodgenville and then up towards Bardstown watching that form. So, I mean, you're looking at downtown Bardstown right now. You definitely want to be underground if you have a basement. You definitely want to be away from all the walls and windows in the center portion of your home. In the next 3 to 5 minutes, the worst part of this will be to the east of Bardstown and continuing to move over towards the east-northeast, essentially right along the Bluegrass Parkway. You can see it now, just pulled out of Bardstown with our latest radar sweep and vantage point. You have 62, you have the Bluegrass Parkway, you have a lot of bright colors, and this is another look inside this storm where we're checking out the winds. This is not rain, this is all about how the raindrops are moving in the thunderstorm, if we're getting rotation or if they're moving quickly. And anytime you see a pop of color like that, even if it's not rotating, the winds could very well be in excess of 65 miles per hour. So it does make sense that we've had some reports of trees knocked down. And these are the first reports of wind damage that we have actually found this morning. On the radar vantage point where we look at the rain, you can actually see a little bit of a curl here, a little bit of a hook. It's not a strong signature, but definitely something that warrants this tornado warning as we watch this move towards Maud, Mooresville, Brush Grove, and Willisburg. So that would take us over into Washington, Marion County locations as we have two ongoing tornado warnings that we're looking at. Let's broaden the horizon here, give us a few more spots. Firearm safety training, Mattingly Silo, locations like that moving over towards Maud and along the Bluegrass Parkway. If you're familiar with these zones, that's where the most tight rotation will be headed to in the next 5 minutes. So twinning cells here with some rotating winds, Bardstown down towards Raywick, Loretto. It seems like, 5 minutes ago we were mentioning Springfield and how it won't take long for it to arrive. Look how close it is now. Movement at 55 to 60 miles per hour. So we're almost to the finish line. Not quite there yet. Bardstown, Springfield, Lebanon, Willisburg, up 62. This entire area can see these rotation pockets come and go, but also change their location. It might be centralized for a little while, and then 5 minutes from that point, it's gone, and it's actually moved or spread out a little bit. So anywhere in these tornado warnings, these 2 tornado warnings that we have right now, it's fair game for some damaging winds in excess of 60 miles per hour and some very tiny rotation that could lead to some weekend tornadoes. Hannah, I think something very important to pass along in this scenario. This is textbook for us when you see something like this, but that would mean if we're going to have a tornado touchdown, it's probably not going to be one of those that's 200-mile-per-hour winds knocking everything down. This would be a weak version of a tornado and probably very short-lived.
Yes, we're not talking about those huge wedge tornadoes that you see out in the plain states where folks go chasing tornadoes. These are quick to spin up and quick to spin back down. If we've seen anything this morning, we can say that that is very true. Now you're taking a look at our whole area, so you know that there are 2 active tornado warnings for our communities. The rest of you are not included in those warnings, but we still have a line of storms marching across our communities. And those storms pack a lot of energy. We're getting some flooding advisories to come in now, so that's the Weather Service's way of saying, hey, we've seen a lot of rain this morning. You got to pay attention, especially if you haven't hit the road yet. Keep your eyes open, be alert. We're going to see some flooding likely in the next few hours. There's a lot of lightning on this map. It can sometimes muddy the waters a little bit, make it a little bit more challenging to see. Now we're getting some new scans to come in from that rotation just outside Springfield. I want to flip over to Storm View 3D here. Jude, can you explain to us the thing that's going on the right-hand side of the screen there? How does that help us see what's going on?
Well, it makes it really easy because it can take out a lot of the clutter. You know, when you look in here and you're trying to find where a tornado would be, where it's pouring down rain, makes it a little bit difficult, doesn't it? But this is something that is just scanning for rotation, takes everything out, and you often hear us say, green means go. You see green on this rotation scan, and that's telling you the rotation is stronger and maybe a better chance for a brief spin up. We keep mentioning moving directly towards Springfield. Of the 2 tornado warnings, this one right now definitely has our attention the most. That's not to say ignore this one, but come down south, moving towards Springfield as we watch a quick pulse up with some of that rotation that's moved on just in the last 5 minutes. It's back a little bit stronger, and it's common to see this happen. It's one of the things that makes it really hard to pinpoint and predict if we're going to get a tornado to touch down, because it comes and goes, and if you're missing it for a minute, I mean, you didn't even see it on the radar vantage point. Actual velocity, how the raindrops are moving in the thunderstorm, note it here with green and red coming together. Green, that's air moving towards the radar site up at Fort Knox. Loretto, where it's red, that's air moving away. So counterclockwise spin in between Loretto and Springfield. We have a little bit of a tightening and a better chance for a quick touchdown of a weak tornado. Not guaranteeing you that would happen, but certainly watching that one move right towards Springfield. Hannah, how are we looking up towards the Bardstown area right now?
On these storms, I don't like how that comma is tightening up a little bit on the other side of Bardstown. That storm just passed through Bardstown, now headed outside the city. I'm first tracking the storm to the south that Jude was just talking about. Springfield, we've mentioned you a couple of times. This is about 5 minutes away from you. It's time to be in your safe place. Wherever you are at the moment, it's time to be in your safe place. Thompsonville, you still have about 10 or 15 minutes. Mackville, you're closer to 15 minutes away from this area of rotation approaching you. And the Battle community, you're closer to 20 minutes away. Now, I want to go a little bit farther to the north. And I mentioned kind of when Jude tossed it over to me, I don't like how this is tightening up. We're getting a little bit of a funny shape up here as this storm continues to move to the east. I don't love that. That's not my favorite thing to see in a tornado. It just means that that storm is potentially gathering some energy on that side of the storm. So let's track this one from where it's rotating. The Sparrow community, you still have about 10 minutes until this gets to you. Closer to 15 minutes in Klondike, the Sinai area, 15 minutes away from you, and still 20 minutes away in Hickory Grove. If we are calling out communities or neighborhoods near where you live, if this is near your area, it's time to be in your safe place. Now, I think as we talk about kind of what we see in tornadoes, it's important to put some of this in context. So I want to flip this over back to velocity. And the bright colors here, where you see a very bright red, a very bright pink on the left-hand side of your screen, and kind of a darker, more muted red on the right-hand side. This tells you even if the storm is not spinning, it's not actively rotating, even if there's not a tornado outside of your house right now, and we pray that there's not, the wind is still strong here. This warning, the tornado warning, the severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued all day, they warn for wind gusts up to 50 and 60 miles an hour. That is strong enough to do damage. So even if you don't necessarily see the rotation right in your community, or this tornado warning doesn't produce an actual tornado on the ground, it is producing strong wind. Fact. Take that to the bank. In fact, we're getting more of those damage reports to come in. We had one come in from Breckenridge County, which obviously was far upstream from the storm. The Ben Johnson Elementary School in Breckenridge County is reporting some roof damage, and there's water in the gym after obviously rain poured through that roof damage. So these storms are powerful. They pack a punch, whether they rotate or not. I'll also tell you, Mother Nature doesn't make straight lines on purpose very often, so where you do see straight lines developing in thunderstorms, like the track south of Springfield, we want to keep an eye on that. There's likely strong wind there. The bright colors tell us there's definitely some heavy rain. And we don't see a ball like this form up on its own. This is where we saw some of that rotation leaving Bardstown. That's what we want to keep an eye on. Just these features that don't look like everything else around them. That's what should stick out to you when you look at a radar display, especially when we're talking about tornadic potential. Now, I'm going to flip back over to Storm View 3D, that kind of split screen view we've been showing you this morning. On the left-hand side of your screen is that rotation. Red and green next to each other. We look at how the wind is moving inside of the storm. I'm seeing a couple of spots here. Man, that stuff just south of Bloomfield, it looks kind of ratty at this point. It's not a tight couplet. I think you could still argue that's rotating a little bit. And south of Springfield, just now approaching the city, I think we're seeing some light rotation there as well. Jude, what do you see there? Do you see that rotation? I mean, the normalized rotation on the other side of the screen sort of helps with that.
Right, and it's just not a lot of rotation, but it's just enough to where you have to keep monitoring this, moving towards Springfield, and again in between Willisburg and Bloomfield, there is some weak rotation, and when you match it up to actually velocity winds inside the thunderstorm, there's times when you check this out and you're thinking, gosh, do we really need to stay on air and keep going with this? I would say history says yes, just because in the last 10 to 20 minutes as it is coming and going, pulsing up and pulsing down, while at this stage of the game, you probably don't have a tornado on the ground. You have to give it a few more minutes. I mean, this could easily change in the course of the next 2 to 3 minutes like we've already seen. Hannah, let's do one box and just show the velocity winds. And let's rewind a little bit so we can show everyone how it has evolved just in the last 30 minutes when the first tornado warning came on board, and how there were times embedded in this line where it popped more, and then you blink a couple times and it's gone, and then it comes back a little bit. We don't have the perfect scenario, thank goodness, to allow these storms to stay tornadic and represent tornadoes sticking on the ground and not leaving. So at least this is one of those versions where when you go back, you can see a couple places where it began around Hodgenville, and you had some red and green coming together, and then a few spots embedded in there where there were a couple areas of weak rotation. It was stronger there, but then it leaves a little bit. So until this clears by entirely, since it did have the history and we started to get reports in Tonyville of some trees knocked down, at a bare minimum, we're looking at some winds gusting 60 to 70 miles per hour, straight line fashion as these storms gust out. In Springfield, it's right here on top of you, and what I'm referring to is if there's going to be rotating winds, it would be right on top of the town of Springfield, and within the next 2 to 3 minutes, what's left of this weak rotation would be moving towards Mackville. Let's head north a little bit, Willisburg, and then back up into Nelson County, coming out of Nelson County over towards Chaplin. These are locations that are in the path of what was some rotation that quickly developed around Bardstown. But it's obvious to me, it's obvious to Hannah, it's obvious to any trained meteorologist that currently there's nothing that would say, boy, we have a tornado on the ground, you have to be underground to stay alive. That is not the case in this situation. to play it safe, you want to be in a location to keep you from the possibility of damaging winds. And in fact, rather than issuing a tornado warning, the National Weather Service has gone with a severe thunderstorm warning that extends out towards Willisburg as some of that rotation has come down a little bit. So we'll mention along the Bluegrass Parkway, essentially that's the bullseye zone there as we head down towards 926 over towards Cornishville, Bethel Baptist Church, Crosswinds Pottery, Reynolds Nursery. If you're familiar with any of these areas, these are all locations at a minimum will have lightning, we'll have gusty winds, maybe some small hail. We've transitioned from the hail threat earlier this morning to then as these storms move south where the atmosphere had more wind energy to see a better chance for some damaging wind. So this entire area, whether it's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, everything's on the table right now to create the possibility of some damage. Hannah, I know you continue to monitor the wires in the National Weather Service. Have they issued any more reports about damage that has come out from these storms?
I haven't seen any more damage reports yet. I will add that new severe thunderstorm warning that just came in for those same communities that Jude was highlighting, that does come with a tornado possible tag. So that's the Weather Service's way of saying, hey, this was a tornado warned storm, and really we still see the potential for this to rotate and produce a tornado at any moment, but we see this more transitioning to a wind threat, which we've been talking about a little bit this morning. So that's why that new severe thunderstorm warning, that new orange box was issued. You can see it really sticking out around Harrodsburg. Now let me take this a little bit farther south, because we've got a second severe thunderstorm warning that was just issued for our communities to the south. This one does not include the tornado possible tag. So included in this warning are parts of Adair, Boyle, Casey, Greene, Hart, LaRue, Marion, Metcalfe, and Taylor counties. The severe thunderstorm warning goes until 9:15. Again, this southern warning that you're looking at here on your screen does not include the tornado possible tag. We're not seeing that same rotation. What we are seeing, strong wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour, which is strong enough to do damage, and the potential for hail the size of a quarter. One more update before I take you back to the radar display is this watch. This severe thunderstorm watch has been expanded. More communities have been added. That's what you see in the blue shading here. So there were some folks left out of it when it was issued initially. You can also see the Weather Service starting to trim it where the threat is not as high now for severe weather. For example, Breckenridge, Meade counties, you guys have been dropped from that watch at this point. So the Weather Service will continue to update this watch as we get these storms to pass by. But for now, a couple of severe thunderstorms and the one active tornado warning that goes until 9. We'll zoom in a little bit closer on this warning here so we can take a look at where it's rotating and if this is still an ongoing threat. Jude, what sticks out to you here on this display?
Looking over towards Willisburg, down towards Springfield, there's still that tiny notch up around Chaplin and Bloomfield, a bit of weak rotation to be seen in these storms. Let's do a reset. It's 8:45. We've covered this area extensively with the tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings. Since at this stage of the game, we don't see anything that would suggest we have a tornado on the ground right now, I want to get everyone caught up because we have a lot of people tuning in and tuning out at this part of the morning. Because from Louisville down to Bowling Green, the back edge of the rain, thunderstorms, gusty winds is right there on I-65. From Louisville to Cincinnati on 71, there's a ton of lightning. The rain is coming down to where traveling isn't recommended because you can't see out your windshield. But this is not severe. The focus is I-64 down towards the Bluegrass Parkway and the Cumberland Parkway. This zone in here is the hot spot. So this is getting everyone caught up. Let's loop this radar. Let me show you just the last couple hours worth. We had the 100% chance of rain. We said there'd be the potential for a few strong to severe storms. That overachieved. We had quite a few hail reports initially, but the threat turned to wind as it moved down south in this atmosphere that was ripe. Look, it didn't rain there until the last 30, 45, 60 minutes or so. So when it rains, the atmosphere cools and it zaps the energy. This was just sitting here waiting to explode, and that's why we've seen a couple of these tornado warnings, the only 2 tornado warnings of the morning, and that transition from the hail threat to some straight line wind. And every now and then, as we focus on these warnings down south, you will see some quick rotation. It's on the radar for a couple minutes, then it's gone, then it tries to come back. We don't have full energy like you do in the spring and summer. If we did, this would most likely be a situation where there'd be a lot more tornadoes ongoing, and we'd really be on this one. As we look at Campbellsville in the latest severe thunderstorm warning, we could have some hail, probably lower end hailstones, smaller in size if that would happen. But it does look like as these things move at 50 to 60 miles per hour, the straight line wind threat would be a little bit higher down around Campbellsville. And this is over Green River Lake, basically Holmes Bend Marina and Resort. If you're familiar with that location, about to get drilled with rain. There's lightning ongoing. It's just moments away from Campbellsville. You might think it's safe to be outside because you don't have those giant raindrops coming down, but you're close enough to the storm to where lightning is a hazard. Lightning can strike within 10, 15 miles of apparent thunderstorm. And then as we come up north and we start to get into these warnings to pinpoint some of that possible rotation, you never like to see a little notch right there where Hannah just put that arrow on. That's starting to pulse back up here. So just because we've taken that tornado warning away, it tricks you, doesn't it? This is what I mean. It makes it really difficult for a meteorologist because it was gone for a while. But then this might have to be upgraded back to a tornado warning because just recently you start to see that inflow and outflow, green and red, curving, and you don't want storms to curve. So right there in between Springfield and Willisburg, some rotation, not necessarily that strong, but that would be the zone to watch, the hot spot for the possibility of a quick spin up. And as we once again look at this, moving towards Danville to Willisburg, this is that tornado warning. Hannah, what do you have for us?
Well, they